The family dinner escalated into a fierce confrontation when the mother-in-law demanded the inheritance left by her deceased sister, a sum amounting to $3 million. The young wife attempted to explain her inability to comply, but her husband curtly interrupted her. "Shut your mouth and listen to your mother," he commanded, his words landing like a death sentence. However, by evening, everything had shifted. He returned home a completely transformed man, visibly shaken and frightened. Hello, dear listeners. I am delighted to welcome you to my channel. I present to you a new, captivating story. Enjoy the listening. The mother-in-law, Lyudmila Konstantinovna, arrived unannounced that Tuesday, as was her custom. She entered with an air of ownership, discarded her shoes directly onto the clean rug, proceeded to the kitchen, and poured herself coffee from the chesvi that Olesya had just taken off the stove. "Olesya, we need to have a serious talk," she announced, settling at the table and drawing the sugar bowl closer. Olesya silently retrieved another cup and poured herself the remaining coffee. Conversations with her mother-in-law always began the same way. "We need to have a serious talk." And each time it signaled a new attempt to dictate their lives. "I've been doing some calculations," the mother-in-law continued, stirring her coffee. "You young folks are healthy and strong, renting an apartment, living hand to mouth, while I have a vacant 2-room flat in the center. It only makes sense to sell it, add a little, and buy a 3-room apartment. You and Sasha will have a separate room, and I'll have my own. Everyone benefits." Olesya choked on her coffee. She and Alexander had been married for 2 years. Their rented 1-room apartment on the outskirts, cramped with a perpetually leaky faucet and upstairs neighbors who rearranged furniture in the dead of night, was their small sanctuary. It was a place where they could close the door and be alone together. "Lyudmila Konstantinovna, we are managing," she said cautiously. "We don't want to be a burden." "A burden?" The mother-in-law waved a dismissive hand. "I'll help with household chores, cooking, cleaning. You both work until evening. That way, you'll come home to a set table, a clean, cozy place." Olesya pictured this scenario and felt a chill run down her spine. Lyudmila Konstantinovna, present in their lives every day, offering a critique every day. Why so much salt in the soup? Why buy such expensive sausage? There's cheaper. "Alexander, you should wear a tie to work. You look like a vagrant." "We'll think about it," Olesya replied neutrally. "There's nothing to think about," the mother-in-law declared, slamming her palm on the table. "You're throwing money away. $28,000 for this hovel. Over $300,000 in a year. Madness." Olesya remained silent. In the evening, when Alexander returned from work, she cautiously broached the subject. He listened, eyes glued to his phone, then sighed. "Listen, maybe she has a point. It's a significant saving." "Sasha, we discussed this. We wanted to save up for a down payment on a mortgage ourselves." "Save up?" He gave a wry smile. "With our salaries, I make 45, you make 38. Minus rent, minus groceries, utilities. What's left? We'll save 300,000 by retirement." He stood up and went to the kitchen, retrieving yesterday's cutlets from the refrigerator. Olesya watched his back, her insides twisting. This was his typical approach, never directly refusing his mother, but never agreeing immediately either. He simply went with the flow, hoping the problem would resolve itself. 3 months ago, Olesya's Aunt Vera, her mother's sister, had passed away. She had no children, and her entire estate, a small 1-room apartment in the southwest, she bequeathed to Olesya's mother. Her mother acted swiftly, processed the inheritance, sold the apartment for $3,100,000, and gave the money to her daughter. "This is for you," she said, sitting in their very same rented 1-room apartment, holding a cup of tea in an old mug with a chipped handle. "Invest it in your own place. Just don't tell anyone until you've bought it, okay?" Olesya nodded. The money was deposited into a separate bank account, $3,100,000. It was the first time in her life she had such a sum. It wasn't just an inheritance, it was freedom. She hadn't discussed it with Alexander. Well, they had discussed it, but vaguely. He knew her aunt had passed away and about the apartment. But when Alicia mentioned that her mother had arranged everything in her name, he merely nodded. "Good enough," he'd said, and returned to his perpetual phone. Lyudmila Konstantinovna found out by chance. She overheard a phone conversation when Alicia was speaking with her mother about deposit interest rates. For a week, the mother-in-law maintained a stone-faced demeanor, then arrived with a new plan. "Aliciushka, I've been thinking," she began, smiling so broadly that Alicia immediately grew wary. "Since you have money now, let's do this. I'll sell my 2-room flat. That's $2,800,000. You add your 3. That's nearly $6 million. We can buy an excellent 3-room, maybe even a 4-room if we search. There will be enough space for everyone." Alicia sat on the sofa, arms crossed, and remained silent. "Why are you silent?" The mother-in-law leaned towards her. "It's a perfectly reasonable offer. You'll continue living in a rented hole when you could." "It's my mother's inheritance," Alicia said quietly. "Mine. Yours." Lyudmila Konstantinovna straightened up. "And Alexander is yours, or is he mine too? You're a family, after all." "There should be a joint budget." "A joint budget is our salaries." "An inheritance?" "Inheritance is greed," the mother-in-law interrupted, her voice hardening. "Are you saying you'll sit on the money while my son carries all the weight, paying rent, providing food for you? I work too." Alicia felt a surge of indignation. "And I cover half the expenses. Half." The mother-in-law threw her hands up. "He makes 45, you make 38, and you think that's fair. You should be grateful he married you at all, without a dowry, without connections." Alicia stood up, her hands trembling. "Please leave," she said quietly. "Please leave." "As if." Lyudmila Konstantinovna didn't budge. "I'll talk to my son. He'll set you straight." That evening, Alexander returned home, looking grim. He didn't even greet her, proceeding straight to the bedroom and tossing his bag on the bed. "My mother called," he said, not turning around. "She says you refuse to help the family." "Sasha, this isn't helping the family. It's moving in with your mother." Alicia followed him in, standing in the doorway. "We discussed this. We wanted to buy our own home together." "We will buy one," he turned, "with my mother. She's selling her apartment. We add your money." "My money?" Alicia felt a chill. "Sasha, this is my mother's inheritance. Aunt Vera left it to my mother. My mother left it to me. Inheritance received during marriage doesn't automatically become joint property." "What difference does it make?" he snapped, making her flinch. "Are you lecturing me about laws now? My mother, at 65, lives alone, working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and you have $3 million in your account, and you?" "She doesn't work 2 jobs," Alicia breathed out. "She's retired and works part-time as a consultant in a store." "Don't you dare speak about my mother like that." He grabbed her shoulder, squeezing it until it hurt. "Shut your mouth." "Understood? She wishes you well, and you're acting selfishly." "Let go." Alicia wrenched herself free. Alexander stepped back. "What's wrong with you?" He stood there, breathing heavily, looking at her as if she were an enemy. "You will give this money to the common cause," he said slowly, "or I don't know what I'll do." Alicia turned and left the room. She grabbed her jacket, bag, and phone. Her hands were shaking so much she could barely zip her jacket. Alexander Dark dashed out after her. "Where are you going, Alicia? Stop, we haven't finished our conversation." She didn't turn around, ran out of the apartment and down the stairs. She didn't have the strength to wait for the elevator. Outside, it was April. A cold wind was blowing, and she walked quickly, almost running, without regard for the path. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Alexander, her mother-in-law, Alexander again. She rejected the calls and texted her mother. "Can I come over?" Her mother opened the door, looked at her face, and silently embraced her. She didn't ask anything, simply led her into the room, sat her on the sofa, covered her with a blanket, and brought her tea with honey. "Tell me," she said once Alicia had calmed down. Alicia recounted everything, her mother-in-law's proposal, Alexander's reaction, and his words. Her mother listened, her face hardening. "Now listen to me carefully," she said when Alicia fell silent. "This money is yours, not theirs, not ours. It's yours. Aunt Vera worked her entire life as a teacher, scrimped on food to buy that apartment. She wanted you to have your own. Do you understand? Your own." Alicia nodded, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "If you give that money away," her mother continued, "you'll never see it again. The apartment will be registered in your mother-in-law's name, and you'll be left with nothing, because you cannot trust women like that." "But he's my husband." "A husband doesn't grab his wife by the shoulders," her mother said sternly. "A husband doesn't yell. A husband doesn't force you to give away your inheritance to someone else. Do you understand me?" Olesia lived with her mother for 3 days. Alexander called every hour. At first he shouted, demanding she return. Then his tone softened. He started apologizing. He swore he had lost his temper, that he was tired from work. Olesia didn't answer. On the 4th day, a knock sounded at the door. Her mother opened it. Standing on the threshold was Alexander, pale, with red eyes and a creased shirt. "I need to speak with my wife," he said quietly. Her mother looked at Alicia, who nodded. They went out into the yard and sat on a bench by the entrance. The April sun warmed them, and sparrows hopped on the asphalt. "I'm sorry," Alexander began. "I shouldn't have done that. Mother said you were greedy, that you didn't care about the family. I believed her," Olesia finished. He remained silent, looking at the ground. "Mother wants the best," he finally managed. "She's been alone for so many years. It's hard for her. I want to help her." "Help her," Olesia said. "With your own money, transfer it to her from your salary, or move in with her if you want." "What are you talking about?" He turned to her. "I want us to be one family." "Sasha, your mother doesn't want to be a family." Alicia shook her head. "She wants to control. She wants my money. She wants me to be grateful for every bowl of soup." "That's not true. You just don't see it or don't want to see it." He stood up, paced along the bench, and returned. "Fine," he said sharply. "Fine. We won't live with my mother. We'll buy our own place. With your money, just the two of us." Alicia looked at him. In his eyes she read desperation and something else. Calculation. "No," she said. "I will buy the apartment in my name. We can live in it, but the ownership will be mine." "What are you even talking about?" he asked, defeated. "I'm your husband." "The husband who grabbed me by the shoulder and yelled at me to shut up," Olesia said evenly. "I'm sorry, Sasha, but after that, there's no trust." He stood there, looking at her, his expression shifting. First shock, then anger, then something cold. "So be it," he said quietly. "You're selfish. Mom is right. You only think about yourself." "Perhaps," Alicia said, standing up. "Go home, Sasha. We have nothing more to discuss." Later that evening, her mother-in-law sent a long voice message. Olesia listened, and a chill spread through her. Lyudmila Konstantinovna spoke calmly, almost affectionately, saying she understood everything. Olesia was young, foolish, and inexperienced, but she needed to be smarter, to understand that family was paramount and money came and went. The main thing was not to lose her son. A man like Alexander, she implied, would be snapped up. He was handsome, hard-working, and promising. And Olesia? She was ordinary without outstanding qualities. She was lucky he married her. "Think carefully," the mother-in-law concluded, "before it's too late or you'll be left alone with money but without a family. Is that what you want?" Olesia deleted the message, sat on the bed in her mother's room, and cried. Not from resentment, but from relief, because everything had finally become clear. A week later, she filed for divorce. Alexander offered no resistance, not even meeting to discuss it. Everything was handled through lawyers. He vacated the rented apartment immediately and moved in with his mother. Olesya collected her belongings when he was not home. She didn't touch the $3 million, placing it in an account with a good interest rate, and began searching for housing. She wasn't in a hurry. She looked at options, negotiated. Her mother called every evening asking how things were, if she had changed her mind. Olesya hadn't. In June, she found a one-room apartment in a new building, 38 square meters, bright, with a view of the park, $2,700,000. Olesya paid the deposit and finalized the transaction. When she received the keys, she stood in the middle of the empty room and smiled. For the first time in her life, she had her own place, not rented, not shared with a husband, her own. She did most of the renovation herself with her mother and cousin. They painted the walls a light gray, laid laminate flooring, and bought simple furniture. Olesya chose every detail: curtains, dishes, bedding. It was her apartment, her life. A year later, in November, she was invited to a colleague's wedding. Olesya debated for a long time whether to go, but finally decided. She wore a simple black dress, light makeup, and went to the restaurant. She sat at the communal table, smiled, and listened to the toasts, when suddenly she saw him. Alexander was standing by the entrance to the hall. It turned out he was the groom's friend. He looked older, disheveled, with a dull sadness in his eyes. Beside him was Lyudmila Konstantinovna in a tasteless, bright pink dress, all dolled up, holding her son's arm as if he were property. Their eyes met. Alexander froze. He took a step forward, but his mother tugged his sleeve, hissing something. He stopped and lowered his eyes. Olesya turned away, finished her champagne, stood up from the table, and went outside for some air. It was a cold evening, the first snow, and wet flakes melted on the asphalt. She stood by the entrance, huddling in her coat, and suddenly laughed quietly, almost silently, because for the first time she understood she was truly free. And this freedom was worth all the tears, all the sleepless nights, all the fears. Olesya returned to the hall and sat down at the table. A handsome man, about 35, sat down next to her. He introduced himself. Igor worked with the groom. They struck up a conversation, and he turned out to be funny, easygoing, without the burden of others' expectations. By the end of the evening, he asked for her number. She gave it to him. As Olesya left the restaurant, Alexander and her mother-in-law walked past. She was talking loudly, gesticulating, not letting him get a word in. He trailed beside her, hunched and weary. Olesya watched them go and walked towards her car. She got behind the wheel, started the engine, turned up the music, and drove home, to where warmth, quiet, and Aunt Vera's apartment, which had become her fortress, awaited her. And in her pocket was a slip of paper with Igor's number. For some reason, this made her feel light,